Okay guys, so we were just inside talking about how to set the reel up, what line to use, what jig to use, and here is my testing facility that I test all my lures in, okay? So what I was talking to you just a second ago about dropping that lure, you want that lure to go down and hit the water and it just barely boogers up on you, okay? See that? It just gives a little. I've got a little bit looser than you should, just because I've done this a lot more. So there's actually 3 breaks on your reel, okay? Everybody's familiar with the first 2. The first 2 are the anti-backlash knobs on the left side of the reel. The brake, the casting brake right here. And this is your last one, and your most important. You have to get used to, when you're casting, that your thumb is riding this reel, this line, as it's going out, okay? That's how you get your most distance, is when you're zipping that thing, is to just slightly have your thumb on there, and that's going to help you from getting backlash at the end of your cast. So get in your head that that's what you've got to do. Okay, so the first technique, there's a couple different techniques that I was talking about. The first technique that I taught myself to use is the underhand pitch that a lot of people are familiar with, okay? That's a great technique. I mean, like I said, I used that for a number of years with a Senko 1/4 ounce peg weight, and you can really get out there with it, okay? But 2 things I didn't like about it, okay? First thing is, when you're casting, you see how your line is in that upward attitude? Well, what happens when you cast out there and it hits a dock, if this is the forward edge of that dock board, it rubs against that as you're skipping up underneath there, so you're constantly hitting your line. That's something that we don't want to do, okay? Or if there's a willow tree and you cast into a willow tree, it's always hanging up on a line and you're trying to work your line down through it. Well, a 6-pounder might have just picked up your jig and you just didn't realize it because you were monkeying around with your line, right? So that's kind of the things that I don't really like about it too much. So the other thing is, when you're casting like this 400 or 500 times a day, it'll wear out your elbow, it'll wear out your wrist. If you've got bad shoulders like I do, and by 3/4 way through the day, you want to start doing something else, trust me. So those are the 3 things I really didn't like about that technique, even though it is very effective. What I like now is the side cast, and you've heard everybody talk about it. It's just like throwing a rock. Yeah, I agree with that. But what I like to equate it to is, I think of 2 things when I'm casting. That's light hands. I'm not squeezing this, and I'm not trying to Babe Ruth this thing out there. If you try to do those 2 things, it's going to hit the water and you're going to bird's nest, okay? Or you're not going to, or it's going to skip the first time. It's going to bounce down there. What you want to do is soft hands. Soft hands, and I think about trying to take a knife and just slicing the top 1/16 of water off. That's where I want my lure to be skipping along there, okay? The analogy of skipping a rock definitely works, but what I try to do is that, okay? That's the sound you want to hear, is skip, 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 all the way out there. You want 55 skips, not 2 bouncing skips, okay? Now I know a lot of guys will tell you should aim, like let's say the dock is all the way down there, you should aim to hit down there. Yeah, okay, that's right in front, 2 feet in front of the dock or something. That's not bad advice, but what I find when I do that is I get too much of a bounce. I'm trying to find the docks that are that far off the water because nobody else can get underneath them. That's new water underneath there. Those bass never see lures because nobody can get them underneath there. So you need to be able to come along and do that time after time after time, okay? Now, notice how when I cast, the rod tip is right down on the water, okay? You don't want to be casting like this, okay? If you cast like this, it's going to dig straight in. I don't care what lure you've got. What you really want is that lure, that rod tip to go right down along the top of the water, okay? That's how you get that technique. Now here's the next one, is a roll cast, okay? Roll cast, you gotta leave a little bit extra line out so that this rod loads up as it goes around. You see that? You want the rod to do all the work for you, all right? So, let me see if I can do it. You send that guy out. It goes around, and you just let the momentum of that lure coming around send it right out there. Instead of you skipping it, the lure coming around does it, okay? I find I don't really have quite as much accuracy when I do that, but it's still a technique that I like to use in certain situations, okay? Like I said, sometimes you're moving really fast down a line of docks and you see a dock that's far out there, or maybe you've got a little bit of a booger on your last cast and you want to air it out. That's a good way to do it. Is I'll use that just to send that dude out there, drop it, thumb it right before it hits the water, and kill it, and it cleans my reel out, and I'm using an overhand cast, okay? So those are the two different situations. Remember, 20-pound test, medium heavy, all breaks out when you're learning. Set this up so that when it hits the water, it doesn't overrun, and practice, 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 practice. When you're done practicing, go practice some more.